Good evening, women. Tonight I have brought with me a visual aid. Yes, it's an unused tampon that's been through the wash in my jeans pocket. And I've been through my pockets. Admittedly, I was mainly looking for tissues. So I didn't get those white fluffy bits over everything. Which means you've got to wash it all again or go out bravely, knowing everyone you meet's thinking, left a tissue in her washing. But I'd forgotten that little tiny pocket. You know, the pocket that's a pocket inside your jeans pocket. Which apparently, and I don't know if this is true, was specially designed way, way back in the history of jean making for men to put their condoms in. Well, I don't know about condoms, but it fits 3 Super Plus Lillet-sized tampons very nicely. So I got 3 of these out of the washing machine. And I can't bear wasting things. So I thought, there must be something I can use it for. I know, Christmas tree decorations. It's a bit early, but come December, I could get myself a little stall at the watershed or at the Christmas market in Bath. I could have them all hanging up. Santa's beards. The feminist touch for Christmas. Well, everyone's heard of Bobbit, haven't they? But instead of just chopping off Santa's dick, I've chopped off all of Santa. But it's annoying when this happens, because they're not cheap. Especially the organic, non-bleached cotton variety that I am modelling here by Naturacare. Because apparently your bog standard tampons are made of bleached cotton or some synthetic material, which isn't the best thing to put up you. And I thought, well, I try and eat organic. So why not go organic in that department as well? I must admit, it took me a while to grasp the concept of organic cotton. I first heard about it on the radio. They were talking about organic cotton t-shirts. And I thought, well, I'm not going to eat my t-shirt, am I? I mean, if I was washed up on a desert island and hadn't had any food for a couple of months, maybe. But then the programme went on to explain that in the growing of non-organic cotton, they use lots and lots of chemicals, about half a cup per t-shirt, which makes the farmers and cotton pickers very ill, giving them allergies, skin reactions, cancers and children with birth defects. And I suddenly felt terribly guilty. I couldn't sleep all night. I lay awake under my new non-organic cotton bed set, thinking about all the people I'd unwittingly poisoned with my duvet. Not to mention that it wasn't fairly traded. But even with the organic cotton tampon, the environmental fascists amongst us would say I still wasn't doing enough. No, apparently the disposal of women's sanitary products is a major source of pollution worldwide. The Women's Environmental Network focused their major campaign on it last year. I mean, you should never put them down the loo, because they go into the ocean, bob about, give off nasty chemicals, and the fish don't like it. But if you put them in the bin, landfill. A friend of mine suggested that, like her, I compost them. Well, I've got a communal compost bin, and I didn't think the neighbours would appreciate seeing my used tampons mixed up with the veg peelings and old tea bags. But I do actually use these quite rarely. I've moved on to the ultra-environmental moon cup or keeper, which is a little rubber cup or silicone which you squish up it collects the blood, you wash it out and can reuse it for up to 10 years. It saves a fortune on sanitary products, and I'm always up for a bargain. But I must admit, I did find it a little tricky at the beginning. I didn't read the instructions. Well, I thought, how complicated can it be? I gave up reading instructions for sanitary products when I was 13. Have you tried following the instructions for Tampax insertion? You got to get your leg up on the toilet seat and your bits at a specific angle. Try doing that in a small toilet cubicle in the galleries with a load of shopping bags you're trying to keep off the floor because the hook's broken and you don't want anyone nicking them under the toilet door. It's like being the final contestant on Crackerjack. You got everything finely balanced. You've even got the cabbage and someone asked you to insert a tampon. Well, I managed to get it in without the instructions. And I was like, oh, yeah, Don't even know it's there. Just like Tampax. I could do the Tampax pentathlon tomorrow. Start off with a bit of jogging, swimming, horse riding, finish up with some rollerblading. Because obviously they put something in Tampax, don't they? Probably speed. To enable you to do all the things you couldn't do or had no interest in doing when you weren't menstruating. No, menstruating women don't need cups of coffee to get them going. Just a quick Tampax insertion and they're off. Gosh, yesterday I just wanted to veg out in front of the telly, but now with Tampax I just can't stop myself. It's my life. Quick, sign me up for the Bristol Half Marathon. So I got it in all right, but after a couple of minutes I wanted to take it out because I didn't actually have my period. I was just so excited when it arrived, I wanted to give it a go. But every time I pulled, I got this strange, quite painful suctiony feeling. And I started worrying I was going to pull out all my reproductive organs. And I know I've said I don't want kids, but I'd still like the option. Just in case I change my mind, which my mum and a couple of friends think I might. But they thought my lesbianism was a passing adolescent phase, and at 33 I still haven't changed my mind on that one.
No, that's right.
But I couldn't get it out, and it was getting more and more sore. And I started panicking that I'd have to go to the BRI and have it surgically removed. And because I didn't have my period, they think it was some weird masturbating thing. And I'd become like one of those people that nurses tell their friends stories about. Who tell their friends, who tell their friends. And before you know it, you're immortalised in popular culture. I'll be like the man who went to hospital with a gear stick up a certain part of his anatomy and tried to explain it was a freak accident that happened while he was wearing shorts and changing gear. Fortunately, my girlfriend was in, and she was a bit of an expert with the Moon Cup. Been using one for years, and she heard my frantic wailing from the bathroom. "Jane, I can't get it out, I'm going to have to go to hospital." And she explained that if I'd read the instructions, I would have known that all I needed to do was gently press on the side, release the vacuum, and ease it out. And that wasn't the first time she helped me out in that department, no. One day we were making dinner, and I'd really got into Mexican food. I'd gone orgasmic over nachos, melted cheese, and chimichangas. And I was chopping chilies, and they say you've got to be very careful with chilies. Never touch your eyes. But they don't tell you not to touch another part of your anatomy. And I don't know if I'd had an itch or a spontaneous sexual fantasy I had to relieve, but I was on fire down there. I was besides myself, hopping up and down, virtually in tears. I rushed into the bathroom, ran some cold water in the bath, jumped in and sat there shivering in my little t-shirt, swishing cold water around my burning bits. And it didn't make any difference. I was still on fire. So my girlfriend, being a bit of a hippie and into alternative medicine, got out her herb book and decided it was probably best treated as a burn, for which the liberal application of honey was required. So I sat on a plastic chair while she poured half a jar of honey over my bits.
What, you believed her?
And I kept thinking about that postcard, "Dip me in honey and feed me to the lesbians." And I thought, my bits might be burning, but they're not for passion, and I've never felt so unsexy in my whole life. And the honey didn't seem to be doing anything apart from sticking me to the chair. So we put some yoghurt on it, which meant I had a sort of Greek dessert going. The burning did eventually stop by breakfast the next day, and I've been very cautious around chilies since. Because you've got to be careful. It's very sensitive down there, which is something they seem to forget when they give you a smear test. I mean, if you've had a baby, or at least had sex with men, I'm sure there's a bit more room for manoeuvre. But when I had my first one, I couldn't get anything bigger than a Super Plus tampon up there, let alone that huge metal shoehorn thing they shove up you. I was having fisticuffs with the doctor. I mean, she was very nice, but I couldn't help it. Every time she tried to get that thing in, it hurt, so I pushed her off. And I could see she was getting quite upset, and probably about to have me arrested by the police. You know, they've got those posters in reception of a beaten-up doctor saying, "We don't have to take this." So I tried to control myself and sat on my hands. And she managed to get the thing in and opened it up. Couldn't walk for days. I spent a week wandering around like John Wayne. But to be fair, it wasn't all her fault. She did say if I'd relaxed, it would have helped. Well, how can you relax with that thing up you? "Oh yeah, doctor, make yourself at home. Oh, and while you're up, mine's a martini." And then she had more trouble getting the thing out than getting it in. "All right, Amanda, if you can just relax for me now. Can you just relax, please? I can't get it out if you don't relax." And I was like, "I can't, it hurts." So she said, "All right, these muscles here, let's think of them as jelly." I tell you, I had every flavour of Roundtree's jelly going through my head, and I still couldn't relax. I thought I was going to be there all day. But I did hear a very funny true story about a friend's mum who went for a smear test. She was quite conscious of being clean down there, and just before she went, she had a quick shower and gave herself a bit of a spray with deodorant. And she was lying on the doctor's couch, and just as he was about to take the smear, he said, "Oh, you have made an effort." And she smiled, a little embarrassed, thinking he was referring to her slightly sweet-smelling deodorised vagina. But when she got home, she went to the loo and was horrified to find that her pubic area was covered with sparkling glitter. It hadn't been deodorant on the bathroom shelf, but her daughter's spray-on party glitter. Which I think's great, and if it weren't for the genital tissues being a little sensitive, I'd say we should all walk around with glittering pussies. And after 2 women had had sex, the bed would be covered with sparkling love dust. And instead of going for painful Brazilians, women could have their pubic bushes lovingly sprayed. And maybe men would get into it. I do like these Women Live nights. I like hearing people singing and playing instruments. I'm not very musical myself. I don't play an instrument and I can't sing. I used to be able to sing. When I was 7, I was Jesus Christ in Jesus Christ Superstar in the local church production, and I was very good. Probably the first time they'd ever had a lesbian Jesus. And I did know at 7 I had a crush on Brown Owl, and I used to fancy one of the Girl Guide helpers. She had long blonde hair, and we used to play horsey round the church hall. But as I got older, I just seemed to lose my singing ability. And when I was 12, I did my grade 2 piano exam, and I had to sing a scale, and I knew I'd have to do it, and I'd been practising for weeks. And the examiner played the note on the piano, and I was A, B, C. And when I finished, he said, "That was amazing." It was the first time he'd ever heard an entire scale sung on one note. And I was devastated, because I always wanted to be a singer. I used to think if I could sing, my life would be perfect. I'd travel the world with my guitar, singing in smoky bars and subway stations, looking like K.D. Lang and sounding like Elvis. And when I was 18, I really wanted to busk round Europe. And I thought, well, I can't sing and I don't play an instrument, so that's hair braiding or henna tattoos then. And I didn't fancy henna tattoos. And I'd prefer to stay at home than plait my way around the world. And as a lesbian, it's hardly a babe magnet, is it? Do you fancy a free plait? Want to come back to mine? I could plait your hair. I mean, most lesbians don't even have hair you can plait. Of course, now, with all the interest in pubic hairdressing, your Brazilians and Hawaiians, plaiting my way around the world could take on a very different dimension. But I'm not really interested in sex at the moment. I used to be a right one. Orgies, one-night stands, affairs, 3 in a bed. But now, I can't even be bothered to masturbate. I find my masturbation's gone the same way as my meditation. I start off well, focus the mind, got my little fantasy, leather-clad dykes on the beach in Lesbos. The fantasy's for the masturbation, not the meditation. And then my mind just wanders. on the skirting line. I could borrow the ladder from next door. Then I could paint that damp patch on the bathroom ceiling. Perhaps I should get some stain stop. I wonder if B&Q's open now. And I've lost it. But even if I could keep my mind on the job, I'm physically just not up to it. My masturbating muscles have all melted. They've atrophied. And I blame computers. Because my masturbating muscles are the same as my writing muscles, and nobody writes anymore. We're all just tapping away. At school I used to write for hours. Some exams were 3 hours long. Now I can barely sign a cheque. It's like, same with masturbation. I've only been going 5 seconds and I've gone into crump. It's true what they say, if you don't use it, lose it. But although I was a bit of a goer in the sexual department, and I'm not saying it's not coming back, I'm just taking a bit of a celibate vacation. But although I was a bit of a goer, I was never into anything funny. I did try S&M once with my girlfriend in my late 20s. We did a lot of planning, took a special trip to London, went to the women's sex shop, shush, bought a dildo, vibrator, leather corset, and I had a pair of my dad's old handcuffs, because he used to be a policeman. And after much badgering, he gave me them when he retired. But they were part of the problem, because he said I could have them as long as I didn't actually use them, because they had a dodgy lock. And I couldn't concentrate. I kept wondering how I was going to explain to the fire brigade or police why I was handcuffed to a £12.99 IKEA laminate TV table, which was the only stationary object my girlfriend could find to secure me to. I mean, in the films they've got these great iron bedsteads they chain each other to. We didn't even have a headboard. Just a few cuddly toys. And being handcuffed to Flat Eric was hardly going to be erotic. Anyway, my girlfriend was all dressed up and gyrating about on top of me in the leather corset, which actually fitted me better round the bust. Because she was a little smaller in that department. But as they were quite pricey, we'd just gone for the larger one, and we're going to take turns wearing it. I had the strap-on dildo, which was supposed to rub up against your clitoris, but it got all twisted up at a funny angle halfway down my leg. And I wasn't very comfortable. I didn't have much on, and the carpet was made of an itchy synthetic weave, which wasn't very forgiving. And I was cold. I made a mental note that for future S&M sessions, the central heating would have to go on well in advance. But my girlfriend was right into it. She worked herself up into a dominating frenzy. At which point I felt a little scared and lonely. And decided I much preferred her in her Marge Simpson's nightshirt. And I asked if we could stop and I could have a cuddle. So we ditched the S&M and snuggled up with a couple of Linda McCartney pies in front of bad girls. No, I would definitely describe myself as a vanilla sex sort of a woman. And that's not to be confused with vanilla yoghurt. Because although there are certain foodstuffs that can be sexually dripped and licked off your partner's body, such as chocolate or honey, live vanilla yoghurt isn't one of them. Maybe it could be applied as a treatment for thrush, but not as a sexual appetizer or aphrodisiac. How do I know? Because I've tried it. It was with my first girlfriend in the 80s, and 9.5 weeks had come out, and 10.5 weeks, or whatever followed it, and everyone was into covering their partners with sexy food and licking it off. Nutella ruled in the bedroom. But we didn't have any. Well, we did buy a jar, but being a compulsive overeater and bulimic, I'd eaten it all before we got home from the supermarket. So my girlfriend suggested using vanilla yoghurt, which was the only one out of the pack of 4 I hadn't eaten. Because in my teens, I used to see vanilla yoghurt like plain crisps, as rather pointless, pretty flavourless, and something grown-ups ate. Which is interesting, because now my favourite flavour yoghurt is vanilla, and I like plain crisps. Anyway, my girlfriend wanted me to cover her breasts, tummy button, and genital area with the yoghurt. And we had a bit of difficulty at first, because it was set yoghurt. And just came out in rather unsexy blobs. But then I had the idea to stir it up really, really fast, till it went nice and runny. And I didn't mind the dripping bit, because she liked that. It was very cold from the fridge, and with every drop, she let out a little gasp. But then there was the licking bit. And yoghurt's one of those foods, isn't it? I've got a yoghurt and ice cream licking phobia. I'd prefer to give someone my yoghurt or ice cream than have them leave that slimy tongue imprint of a germy lick on my yoghurt spoon or lolly. Or worse, just as they finish licking and move away, you see that thin line of saliva running between their tongue and your lolly. It's like sharing a bottle of pop at lunchtime when everyone's eating their sandwiches. Well, I don't mind people having some of my fizzy drink. Or nowadays my pure, organic, filtered through the ley lines of Glastonbury spring water. But they can only have the end bit, when I've finished drinking, the bit that's 90% spit. Because otherwise they unknowingly knock those semi-chewed, crummy bits of sandwich from the edge of their mouth into your bottle, and you can see them floating about, little suspended particles in your drink. Anyway, I managed to lick it off her breasts and tummy, and that wasn't too bad. But I was completely put off by the pubic region. Well, I don't like hairs in my food. Especially not yoghurt. It reminds me of all those school dinners when you've got your pizza and it's got your dinner lady's hair in it, and you pull it out and there's bits of cheese hanging off it, but they still make you eat the pizza. I did try and lick it off down there, because it was the beginning of the relationship. And we were wanting to be all sexy and impress each other. And neither of us had done that first fatal fart in bed yet. So I went down on her and started going through the motions. But she found my involuntary gagging a little off-putting. So she washed it off and we had a tub of Haagen-Dazs and watched Desert Hearts. Well, before I go further than yoghurt and pubic hair, it's probably about time I stopped. But before I do, I just want to say thank you to George, who has the lesbian name to die for, and all the other women that help organise these Women Live nights, because they're very special. So let's hear it for them.
Oh, that was Amanda. And I believe that's only the second time you've performed in public, is that right?
Yes.
That's fucking amazing.